Welcome back to Reliable Sources. Here's news that will surprise no one. MSNBC leans to the left, just as Fox leans to the right. But sometimes both go way over the line, and there's no denying that what MSNBC did this week was offensive to a lot of people. A network staffer tweeted out a new Super Bowl ad. It's a Cheerios commercial featuring a biracial family. And in its tweet, MSNBC taunted conservatives, saying this: "Maybe the right wing will hate it, but everyone else will go all." The adorable new Cheerios ad. The media quickly pounced, blasting MSNBC for that offensive tweet, and the Republican National Committee Chairman, Reince Priebus, weighed in as well, forbidding RNC staff from appearing on the network. MSNBC is, of course, still recovering from several other public relations nightmares, involving, among others, Alec Baldwin and Martin Bashir. So is the network out of control, as Republicans are charging? As it happens, the perfect person to speak to all of this works here at CNN, but until months ago, worked at MSNBC, the rare conservative to walk those halls. S.E. Cupp is one of the hosts of CNN's Crossfire, and she's in Providence, Rhode Island today. And here with me in New York, local New York journalist and CNN commentator Errol Louis joins me here at the desk. S.E., since you worked at MSNBC until recently, tell me how you felt about this tweet and what it says about the network.
Well, as I've said, I found it deeply disappointing. That sentiment, essentially that half the country is racist for voting Republican, which is what it boils down to, is a sentiment, you've heard on MSNBC if you've tuned in from opinion makers and contributors. But to have it tweeted out and asserted in an official capacity was deeply disappointing. And I think far more damaging than some of the other non-official comments that have gotten MSNBC in trouble in the past. And I think Phil Griffin's aware of how damaging that is coming in an official capacity, which is why you saw such swift response from him and the network.
Yes, he did say in a statement, the tweet last night was outrageous and unacceptable. We immediately acknowledged it was offensive and wrong, apologized, and deleted it. We have dismissed the person responsible for the tweet. I personally apologize to Mr. Priebus and everyone offended. That dismissal was a big deal, to fire someone over this. You've said, S.E., that this is a network out of control, spiraling out of control. Why do you believe that?
Well, as you said, it's not shocking or surprising to anyone that the network leans left, right? I think what's out of step here is that the network's reputation, their whole ethos, is that they're smart, they're intelligent, there's rigorous analysis and debate. They're why, folks like Chris Hayes and Steve Kornacki and Ezra Klein have found a home at that network, because the audience expects smart debate. And what that tweet, I think, did is undermined the intelligence of the typical MSNBC viewer. And look, I got to know the MSNBC viewer very well for the year that I was there. They're a vocal group. I heard from them a lot. And despite the fact that they're very liberal, they're intelligent. And I think that a tweet that cheap and ad hominem really disrespects the viewer. And I think that a lot of the comments in the past that have gotten folks at MSNBC in trouble, Melissa Harris Perry giggling about a biracial Mitt Romney family, I think really just undermines the intelligence of the typical MSNBC viewer. That's a problem for MSNBC. If they're purporting to be intelligent, an intelligent network with folks like Rachel Maddow on, and I think folks like Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes and Steve Kornacki are smart. They are presenting rigorous debate. Then everything on that network really has to live up to that standard, and this tweet certainly did not.
I agree with you about that intellectual quotient, and I think that's why the head of the network was seething about this. Errol, let me bring you in about the RNC's claim about a boycott that day, which was quickly rescinded once there was an apology. What was the Republican National Committee trying to do, you think, with this?
Well, look, some of this is almost the equivalent of professional wrestling, right? There has to be outrage. There has to be drama.
That's
there
great.
has to be a demand. But, but realistically, this is a bit of a negotiation, right? We're not surprised that there's politics involved here, and Reince Priebus needs to show his party that he's going to stick up for them and that he's going to stick up for their conservative base whenever and however he has to. But, as we get closer to the fall elections and certainly the 2016 campaign, the networks especially MSNBC and the Republican Party, are going to do this little dance where the Republicans are going to say, well, we may not put up any guests. We may not give you any candidates. We may not give you any debates. It's a negotiation. If MSNBC does what it's supposed to do and has the kind of impact that we think and expect that they will have, believe me, the Republican candidates will be right alongside each other debating on MSNBC.
So in that case, you don't think it'll hurt MSNBC to have these series of unfortunate events? Do you think it'll hurt them in any other way?
Well, I think it hurts them just as Esty said. I mean, one of the things, the Melissa Harris Perry Show, just to take an example, they do a very good job of bringing out voices, people of color, women, experts who don't normally get much time on Sunday or any other time. And for this to sort of, to lose a point on that brand, that very important brand, with a cheap joke, a cheap Twitter joke, is not what networks are supposed to do. So, Phil Griffin is exactly right to look at policies, look at personnel, and make sure that they don't make that mistake again. I mean, look, we've got somebody like Clarence Thomas is part of a multiracial family, and so is Bill de Blasio, okay? It's not about right or left when it comes to who you love and what kind of a family you form. MSNBC, you would think, would be the first people to realize that and get that right.
To stand up for that. S.C. Cupp, do you think there's a risk that some of this devolves into just beating up on each other in the media and people end up tuning it out? Or do you think these things do matter and we just have to explain them to people the right way?
I think they do matter. I mean, for people like Rachel and Chris Hayes and Andrea Mitchell, I mean, these are influential, serious people. They're smart. They're influential both within the network and I think among viewers. And this does them no favors. I mean, these people have real credibility and currency in the media, and I would think that they'd be as outraged by this and worried about this as conservatives.